Welcome to Inside Aesthetics, the world's leading podcast for injectors and aesthetic businesses. I'm Dr. Jake Sloan, an aesthetic doctor with over 16 years experience in facial aesthetics.
And I'm David Siegel, an entrepreneur and business mentor with over 20 years of experience in our industry. Our podcasts are aimed at industry professionals, and any information or advice given is general in nature. You should consult with a healthcare provider before undergoing any treatment.
You can also subscribe to us on Patreon for on-demand content for injectable and business education. Good morning, David. How are you today?
Good. I'm normally kicking off, so you can kick off today. How are you?
I'm very well. Well, we had a little bit of a late night last night at the Juve conference party.
We did. It was lovely.
So I'm a bit dusty-eyed today.
I actually had a lot of trouble sleeping. I had too many coffees yesterday. I got home and I was tossing.
That can be bad for many reasons, not just sleep.
I know. Yeah. Well, you know, some of you have meeting after meeting and everyone just orders you a coffee, and before you know it, you're like 6 coffees deep and you're like, oh, that's not going to be good.
Yeah, you're going to pay for that.
So I struggled. But yeah, the Juve conference was lovely, celebrating their 15-year anniversary, which is an amazing milestone. So congratulations to Mel and Nicole from Juve, and thanks for inviting us and allowing us to celebrate with you. It was a great event. We didn't stay too long, but it was good.
Well, we made it for the cake and a shuffle on the dance floor.
Yeah. And what's been happening? You've been doing a bit of teaching over in that part of the world. I think it was in combination with Juve and Allergan. You were doing some training over there for them, which was held at Taronga Zoo, which is an amazing venue. If anyone comes to Sydney and wants to check out one of the best zoos I've ever seen in the world, but maybe I'm biased.
So Juve, for people sort of just joining or don't know, they're a company here in Sydney, or Australia now, who I guess support nurse injectors. They sort of help them with compliance, business, stock, running everything. It's almost like a business in a box.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I was there on behalf of Allergan as a speaker and did a talk on Sunday night about how we combine treatments. So trying to get maybe injectors to think about, well, going from isolated areas to total face treatments to make it a little bit more holistic. And then I did a live injection, which was, very simple, and hopefully they took away something from that. And then did some mentoring on Monday and Tuesday with nurses injecting and me mentoring.
Wow, busy boy.
It was busy. Yeah, it was good. But really impressed. The nurses were great. Everyone had really good questions and good skill level. So I thought it was really good.
Excellent.
How about you?
I was up at NSS conference over the weekend, so just went for the day to check out the business chats and go to the gala dinner. It was awesome. Got to connect with a lot of our IA patrons, so shout out to all those guys that got to catch up with and finally put like a face in person rather than just a name on a screen. So it was great to catch up with them. The talks that I went to were great. A lot of interesting stuff. I'd just like to hear what other people have to say from a business perspective and either learn something new or affirm something that I already thought. So it was really good. It was definitely worthwhile. Amazingly organised event. Venue was phenomenal. Everyone looked fantastic at the gala dinner. A few funny stories which are not suitable for viewing, but there was some funny stuff that went on. So it was very worthwhile.
Nice. Now, just a quick reminder about our IA offers.
Yeah.
So if you're new to the podcast, we have IA offers. So discounts and promotions from corporate partners that will help you save money in your business. So we have a link at the bottom of the podcast. So if you want to search all of them, you're welcome to. But I just thought I'd re-mention our one with clinical imaging.
Yeah.
So at the conference, I was showcasing, photography, how before and afters are so useful in a consultation. And of course, to avoid that sort of issue where both you and the patient lose sight of, well, what was their starting point and where are you going? So clinical photography, really important, and clinical imaging are a company based in Melbourne, but they can actually support you worldwide. So they, a bit like what I was saying with the business in a box, they're almost like a camera system in a box. So they will make a bespoke system for your room, no matter how big or small. They'll normally mount a flash on the ceiling, supply you with a camera, set you up, and make it as easy as possible. And I really think that talking to injectors last night, even though they know maybe it's a bit clunky at the start when you don't normally do that, they've realised the importance of how useful it will be. And also diffusing complaints, medical legal stuff as well.
Yeah, diffusing complaints, showing off your work in the highest possible level that you can, because that's basically what you do. So why would you not want to get it in the best possible quality that you can? Data protection as well. So when people are taking photos on phones or other mobile devices that can get lost, stolen, these images are taken, they're stored in the cloud, they're protected. So that's really important as well, because these photos are medical records. So
100%. So you can get money off by just searching the offers below. That will be in the global offers, but we also have some Australian offers if you want to explore those as well.
Excellent. And Patreon this week, in terms of content that you've put up, I saw you did something on reversing eyelid ptosis with PRP, which was interesting. So tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, well, look, I'm not going to spoil the show. We've got a free 7-day free trial. If you want to watch the video, just check it out. But it's very interesting.
Yeah.
I'd never heard of that before.
Yeah.
Novel.
Yeah,
it's true regenerative aesthetics.
Yeah, well, that kind of ties into the topics today, so that's interesting. And I did a post with one of our patrons over in the UK, doctor over there that's recently moved locations and wanted to talk about how to set her prices because she's got increased costs now. How do you calculate margins? What does it all mean? Ways to increase your margin over time, because we do sometimes as business owners get a little bit complacent with our pricing, but inflation's causing all of our input costs to go up, which can affect the money that's coming out of the bottom when you go to do a profit distribution at the end of the quarter or the end of the year. So that was a nice, interesting chat. And I think the feedback we had from that from people that watched already was very, very useful. Because financial literacy is not something that comes naturally to medical practitioners because you didn't learn it. So, of course. So anyway, now, on to today's podcast. I'm really excited about this one because we are joined by our friend Hannah Wendt, who is a biologist from Kentucky over in the United States. And we're talking about epigenetics today. And I'm going to basically try and tell you a little bit about the conversation I had with Hannah before we jump in, which was essentially looking at what you can do with your body in terms of gene expression, what you control, what you can't control. And essentially, we're going to dive into what that does all mean. What does it all mean? Why should you as aesthetic practitioners care about it? And I guess the eventual situation where these two disciplines are going to be well and truly combined within probably everyone's practice within the not too distant future.
Yeah, I'm still on the fence about this. I don't mean on Hannah's topic. It's amazing. I'm can't wait to learn. But I'm not sure who's going to be doing this. I reckon I will carry on, doing what I do, and I'll get a specialist in that knows all about this world to work in my clinic. But I don't think we'll be turning into gurus in wellness and epigenetics. I think we'll be working with more people.
I can sort of see networks forming with people who have people within their periphery that do various bits and pieces. But, as aesthetic practitioners, having a general knowledge of what it does all mean and how does it relate to what we're doing as aesthetic practitioners and business owners.
I guess why I say that is because there's a lot of talk on Instagram and particular people's posts about how you've got to reinvent yourself as, everything you were doing was wrong.
Yeah.
And now you've got to learn it all again and become like some sort of biochemist.
Yeah.
And I think that is a bit, I don't know about disingenuous, but maybe not practical and maybe not necessary. You should stick in your lane and do what you're good at. And work with people who know what they're talking about. Yeah. So anyways, that's my little piece.
Well, speaking of people who know what they're talking about, Hannah, thank you for joining us and taking the time. We've been going back and forth a little bit with various bits and pieces we're talking about. So it's great to finally have you on the podcast and to introduce you to our audience.
Yes, I'm so excited to chat with you both today. I think we can make this super applicable to your audience and the listeners, right? We want to stay ahead of these trends that we're starting to see. As you mentioned, all of these things maybe on social media about epigenetics or biological aging. So we can definitely dig into some of the cutting edge science and the innovation that we're seeing in the field that may start to trickle over into the aesthetics field as well.
Yeah. Well, before we dive into that, just tell us a little bit about your background. Obviously, I mentioned that you're a biologist. You're from Kentucky over in the United States, but tell us the Hannah Wendt story. How did you end up doing what you're doing and a little bit about your training and your background?
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for the opportunity. So I am from Ohio originally, about a couple hours away from Kentucky and where I'm at now. Came down to Kentucky to go to school and wanted to do more, kind of science-based training, whether it was biochemistry, chemistry, biology. Was interested in initially going into more veterinary work at first. So I've always had this interest in biology and just generally how the body works. I wanted to really learn more about our overall function and at the end of the day, just help people, right? I'm super active too. So playing, sports year round, multiple sports. I remember my mom driving me all around the state to play soccer, basketball, run track. I think I tried just about anything and everything. I knew I wasn't good enough to play at like a Division I school over here where I actually wanted to go to school and have a really good curriculum to follow. So I still stuck playing some side sports when I came to college as well, but ended up dropping that and focusing solely on my academics, and took an interesting position afterwards at a compounding pharmacy in Lexington, Kentucky. So I've been here for about a decade now, which is crazy to say. And at that pharmacy was really when I knew of the healthcare provider industry in this integrative functional anti-aging medicine space, right? That's where I had my epiphany, where there were healthy people seeing doctors. And that was just unheard of because we have this sick care model. And not only that, they weren't paying through insurance, they were paying cash up front, right? To just optimize their own health. And that was really interesting because we were offering products that, helped people increase libido, help get a tan, help lose weight, kind of these non-traditional medical practices. It became a lot less fun, though, as regulators started to get into the space. So we wanted a way to quantify how those products were really working. And we said, well, what better way to do that than aging, right? Aging is the number one risk factor for every single disease out there and even death itself. So to make a long story short and wrap it up, we ended up selling the pharmacy in 2019 and went full blown with my company now, TruDiagnostic, focusing on these DNA switches, kind of those epigenetic markers that you mentioned at the beginning, David.
So maybe let's define epigenetics, because I've been trying to get my head around it, and I think I get it, but let's hear your sort of spin on what it means, and I guess the implications of why it's important.
Yeah, so epi is just a Greek prefix. It just means above or on top of. So we're just looking quite literally, on top of the DNA. Why it's so important and revolutionary and this big trend right now is because it's going to be modifiable or changeable, where you have your traditional genetics, where you get 50% from parent one, 50% from parent two, and those aren't going to change unless you do some crazy gene editing, which is possible. But your epigenome is 80% of what you do. It's the air you breathe, the food you eat off of your breakfast plate, the coffee you had this morning, which I had two this morning as well, whether you exercise or not. So it's everything. It's 80% of what you do. And you're really in control now, where the genetics is about 20% of your health outcomes. So all of these, going back to social media and what's really trending right now, all of these posts that you see where you are what you eat, or your DNA is not your destiny, or food is medicine, those are all really funny to me because they're indirectly describing epigenetics, right? That we're just in the power of our own health. And that's why it's so liberating, because you're able to measure that now, receive specific outcomes, and then change behavior, lifestyle. You could supplement, go on medications or do procedural-based therapies that can change and affect those outcomes.
So for the dummies like me, you're basically saying you've got two copies of genes from mum and dad, and they're either on or off throughout your life, depending on, what happens. And you can modify that by not smoking, exercising, eating well, blah, blah, blah. And that is epigenetics. It's the environment that influences what you've got.
You're exactly right. Yes, that's a really good way to put it. It's the nurture part, right? Where nature is going to be more of your parents' DNA, kind of what you receive through that bloodstream.
And so how, in a way, is that new? Because we've always assumed an apple a day keeps the doctor away, and keep yourself moving, and, breathe clean air. Like, why is it new?
Yeah, so it's been around for a long, long time. But what's really new about it is now we're able to quantify it.
Right.
So about 10 years ago was the first time we could actually quantify this process, and where we really started to understand that it's predictive of outcomes. In terms of it being predictive of outcomes or early disease detection, that was only a year or two ago. So, it's really, really new science. It's what I think is completely disrupting not only the laboratory testing space, which I think is a $200 billion market, but I would say it's causing even a massive medical paradigm shift that we're not quite well aware of, but it's definitely coming.
Right.
What do you mean by a medical paradigm shift? You mean in terms of the way that we treat patients with illnesses, or the way that we're potentially looking at health and medicine from a proactive perspective rather than a reactionary perspective? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I think all of it. I think the latter is probably more current, but what I mean by the paradigm shift that it's causing is it's going to be everywhere in the future. There's studies showing epigenetic patterns that are altered in neurodevelopment disorders. There's signatures that can be used to predict all other types of biomarkers. There's other clinical implications. There's a lot of research and therapeutic implications as well. So I think it's going to be its own division of medicine soon, which is really exciting. It's just completely different and a novel new biomarker.
So tell us a bit about your company as well. So TruDiagnostic. So how many are running at the company? Where are you? And what do you guys actually do? What is your product? And again, how is that used by, I guess, the public?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are still a relatively small company, but very fierce and growing. We probably have about 50, I would say, employees now. Probably half of those are actually in the lab running the samples. So we have the lab in-house in Lexington, Kentucky. Every single sample is shipped back to our lab. But our product is going to be biological age, or the outcome of an age that we're actually able to receive by looking at those on and off switches of the DNA. So we've run about 75,000 of those samples and started about 4 years ago. So it'll be 4 years in July, which is pretty crazy to say. But what's so important about the product and why people should care about that now, why they should test from us is we're now at a point where we can quantify really how you're aging on a cellular level, which is going to be completely different from how you're aging on a chronological level, which can only go up with time.
So our friend Felix Bertram, I don't know which test he did, but he did a similar test, and he was shocked at his biological age was about, I think he said 80.
Something,
or something
not good.
Very unusual. And that's really shocked him into a lot of lifestyle change. So I guess that's an example of what you guys are producing. It's a test to tell you how you're actually aging rather than, on the outside. And that might prompt you to make some significant changes to your lifestyle. Is that a good summary?
That's a great summary, yeah. Seems like your friend took a test where his was way, way accelerated, which I would say ours are a bit more fine-tuned than that. We don't see people with, numbers like that are outrageous or don't make sense, but it does act as a wake-up call where you're like, oh, what am I really doing, right?
Yeah. So you raised an interesting point. You said there are other tests that potentially gave differing results to what you guys would get. So how does that actually work? I mean, how do you know? Obviously, you've got a great company, you know what you're doing, but for people that are listening and potentially looking at this, how would they actually ascertain who they should get a test with? Because you don't want one company telling you you're 80 and the other one telling you you're 40. Like, which one's telling the truth? Like, how do you know? How do you know this?
Well, it becomes a really deep dive into kind of the science and the validity behind these, algorithms and what they're producing. So without getting too technical, I would say you want to look for a couple of things. I'll just name 3 of them.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, does the company have their own lab, right? Are they in control of your sample from start to finish? I think there's a lot of, data privacy policies, like you all were mentioning at the beginning, that can be, protected by owning your own lab. Number 2, you want to use a blood sample. So it's going to be an invasive sample, but you want to use a blood sample because, as silly as it sounds, the only published methods have been performed in blood samples and not saliva, not hair, not urine, not a stool sample. So you want someone to have their own lab, have a blood sample. And then lastly, you want these age markers to not just be something you do for fun, right? You want to be able to predict future outcomes, meaning, if you're older, you're probably at increased risk for different diseases. And if you're younger, you're at decreased risk for different diseases. So That's probably like the 3 different checkpoints I may give for someone who's, differentiating between other companies out there.
So can I ask, I know the tests are probably different. I clearly don't understand the technology in the lab, but I did one of those DNA tests a few years ago where you do a cheek swab, you send it back, and they tell you, you've got a second cousin in America, so if you ever need a kidney, call him. So why does that work, but you need blood? Like, is there an easy way of explaining that?
Yeah, there is. That's a great question. So sounds like you did something like Ancestry.com,
exactly,
right? Or like 23andMe. So they're actually looking at your genetics, like we defined at the beginning. And actually, the best way you can get resolution from just a technical standpoint on measuring your genetics is from that buccal swab, we call it.
Right.
You can do it with saliva too, but from what we found, buccal swab is actually a little bit better. So you'll swab your mouth. With epigenetics, it is cell specific, and you're going to get different cell proportions in different sample types.
Right.
So yeah, that's the main reason. The other kind of reason too is you want outcome data when you're creating these predictors. So we partner with, biobanks that have blood samples from 50 to hundreds of years ago. Our most recent one was with Mass General Brigham's at Harvard, and there are no saliva biobanks. I've been asking around if anyone knows any saliva biobanks, send them my way. But so you can't have outcome data on those saliva biobanks, later on in life.
Right.
Gosh. So when you're doing these tests, is there anything that you can sort of talk about from a macro level that you see as a commonality or an issue that's sort of presenting itself across the board when you're looking at this data in sort of its totality?
Just in terms of things that may accelerate aging?
Yeah, just in general. Are there the common things that people are just tending to do wrong?
I think if I can think of maybe some non-traditional ones, like absolutely, outside of maybe all of the easy ones, like you were mentioning, smoking, alcohol consumption, things of that nature. I think number one, there has to be a balance with physical exercise, right? We get a lot of people who come and test with us, and they're, 5-time gold medalist, Olympian athlete, or they're a world champion in a specific sport. And they sometimes have the worst aging because they have way too much inflammation, way too much oxidative stress. And that can really start to make that kind of biological age clock tick, especially if you're not having enough recovery in between sessions or only focusing on aerobic or only focusing on anaerobic exercising. So that's one that sometimes I would say surprises people a lot, right? You always think you'd be in that kind of go mode, but rest and recovery is definitely key.
Yeah. It's like running your car on the red line all the time.
Yeah.
You can do it sometimes, but it's not designed to do that all the time. I know a few people that are professional runners, and you can sort of see in some aspects that it's not really, their body's not enjoying it, if I can put it that way. Yeah. It's almost like there's too much there, like too much of a good thing. Okay, so let's sort of pivot a little bit to the aesthetic side of things. And I guess when we're talking as aesthetic practitioners and business owners, we're looking at the quality of the skin. And that's what we're addressing. So we're dealing with, volume loss, fine lines, wrinkles, textural issues, discoloration, all these things that tend to become more apparent and get worse with age. So when we're looking at epigenetics from an aesthetic aging perspective, what can you tell us? And what should we be looking for or be aware of?
Oh. There's so many cool things, and this is so early. So, just be super excited and keep an eye on it is definitely my advice. But I think I may have hinted this to you the first time we spoke, David. We've actually partnered with a hair care company that's now going into more skin care, lines and cosmeceuticals. But the point being is that biological age clocks, what we've been talking about, show a lot of associations to aging outcomes. And that even includes facial aging. So we have, and we're creating and refining, predictors of skin aging through looking at just those epigenetic markers, those on and off switches. So we're consistently creating these new tools that can really help determine even the best product for different skin types based on, again, the DNA methylation, the epigenetics. So we've been, comparing skin images with skin scrapings that have undergone our testing. We do skin imaging alongside of it that have metrics like eye age. We're looking at your bags, lines, redness, your uniformness, among others. So this data is going to be correlated with many others that we're collecting over time to kind of create this predictor of skin aging. So there's a lot of exciting things looking at, collagen production, skin cell turnover. There's impact on, hair growth and pigmentation, UV radiation, looking into pollution and lifestyle. So that was a wide list that I just gave you all there, but I'll let you work with that and then ask specific questions
Sure.
maybe from that.
That really excites me. I mean, it's kind of aligns exactly with how I work with patients. And I don't do this with every patient, but let's say you get, I don't know, someone relatively young, but like late 20s, early 30s, and they're starting to see early signs of facial aging. We're all on a spectrum, obviously. Some people are perfect and there's nothing changed, and other people have prematurely aged. You can see it. And so, I don't have anything tangible to test on them, but it sounds like your tests are coming, where I can say to them, look, there are some premature signs of aging. Just logically, you're going to age quicker than a peer who doesn't have those signs on your face. And you can tell by looking at your parents, because they'll have, more advanced aging. So if you've got hollows and bags under your eyes at age 30, well, look at dad or mum and you can see where you're going. It's just logical. But I don't have any numbers to sort of throw at them and say, I can prove it. I'm not just bullshitting you in a consultation.
Yeah, you're exactly right. We can make assumptions based on looking at the face or looking at parents, other family members, but to get some really fine numbers behind it, exact quantitative data where you're also able to dive a little bit deeper in terms of elasticity, collagen, UV radiation, exposure. It's going to get a lot more personalized, right? Which I think is probably the number one application for future use of this type of testing. I call it epigenetic profiling for the skin. So by really looking at an individual's on and off switches for their genetic components in the skin, personalized skincare regimens can be developed. So they can target specific areas that are associated with aging, pigmentation. I'll even go far out and say not just like aesthetics based, but other skin conditions too. So it's going to provide a lot more of an effective and customized treatment plan for the patients. I think it's really exciting. It may really change point of care for the aesthetic space in the future.
So how do you imagine that working practically? Because I know we'll come on to how your other tests, your existing tests work. But do you think that you'll come a point where you can do an in-clinic test and you just get a result immediately, so you don't have to wait by sending it back to the lab? I mean, would that be the goal? I mean, might not be practical yet, but maybe one day.
Yeah, we actually get that question a lot. Like a lot of people think we have this device that we send to the practice and then they just do everything in their practice. We don't have it yet, but I mean, it takes some work just imagining kind of how the technology is today, right? We have these multi-million-dollar massive machines in our lab. So being able to, downsize that and make it a turnkey solution in your practice, I don't think it's far-fetched, but it'll definitely take some work. So, yeah, what that would actually look like is there's actually not going to be anything invasive. If all works out in a perfect world, we would send a kit to your patient. We would stock these in office. You'd basically take a little skin sample with a piece of tape, just getting the very surface level of the skin. You'd put that back in a little container, a little buffer, and you'd ship it back to our lab. And then we would take 2 to 3 weeks is about the turnaround time to process that. And you'd essentially get a skin aging report with all of those outcomes that I talked about.
That's amazing. So actually that could be done pre-consultation. If they're that engaged and interested, they don't even need to have met me yet. That sample could have been sent 3 weeks before the consultation. I'd have the results when I first meet them if they wanted
absolutely.
to do that.
Yeah. It's hey, you just filled out my interest form, right? You pay a small fee. You paid me online already. Great. I'm going to drop ship a kit to you. this is going to be the initial assessment that we go over. Of course, with your traditional patient intake form and, whatever other workup you do. But that way it could even be, virtual, right? It's hands off. And then after that, they can meet you, decide if they actually want to come into the clinic and undergo further treatment.
Yeah. Such a powerful tool for the consultation process, because I think a lot of practitioners out there struggle with that component of that patient interaction. There's a lot of time spent on application of technique, which is obviously super important. But in terms of being able to communicate with patients and talk to them about the aging process and why a holistic approach to what it is they're trying to achieve is going to be the best thing for them, because especially here in Australia, Hannah, I'm probably into the United States as well, we've kind of developed a culture where the patient has sort of come in and they're in a lot of ways directing traffic. They're very empowered and informed now. They know about all these treatments, what they do. And I think a lot of practitioners really struggle with taking control of that conversation in a way that the patient's amenable to, and doing it in a way that sort of allows them to really understand why they need to take that approach. And I think, things like the Visio machine or Vectra, where you can take photos of people and it shows you what's going on underneath the skin in terms of aging and pigmentation that's to come. This kind of feels like it's an even more powerful tool
100%.
that you could use to actually explain things. So, what do you think, Jake?
It's amazing. My mind is blown, by the way, Hannah.
Yeah. You have his attention now, Hannah.
Yeah. No, you did before, but now I'm really interested. No, it makes it objective.
Yeah.
The problem when you go for a consultation is, unless the patient trusts the practitioner, they just don't believe what they're saying. They think they're being sold to. Whereas if you have a kit or a Visio or a scan or something that gives you numbers, it's not my opinion that counts. The science tells you what you need. And so I think this is amazing.
Yeah. That'd be such a powerful tool.
Sense.
Yeah, such a powerful tool.
It's tangible, right? It's again, a wake up call. I think something else, Jake, I want to talk about too, which again, is why TruDiagnostic is in a pretty unique place, is because we only really go to these cash pay healthcare providers, right? Eventually, it might absolutely be reimbursed by insurance, I think, over time, but it acts as, a new revenue stream for providers. So again, providers wanting to practice, usually a lot of them don't want to run the business side of things, but these markers are changeable. So what it does is it sets up a really good infrastructure to have your patient come back and retest every 6 months, every 12 months. So not only are you saying, hey, here's the data, you don't look too great, right? Here's what I'm going to fix you. You come back 6 months later, I show that you look phenomenal now, right? Like what I'm doing is actually working. So not only are you going to increase patient retention, by increasing patient retention, you're going to increase that new revenue stream on the side. You're going to increase your trust with the patient, right? And then it's going to snowball over time. It's going to be word of mouth. It's, them telling a friend, family member. So it really does sit on a like pretty good presentation, almost like a bundle you can give directly to the patient.
I don't know if you have an answer for this, but how much does, say, I don't know, diet and smoking and exercise directly influence skin versus the things that we're going to do in clinic? I guess what I'm saying is we won't have control of what they do when they go home. So when they come back in 6 months' time and retest, they could say, well, didn't work. But I could say, well, I can only do so many things in my clinic and skincare and injectables, but you still need to be doing the other things. So how much does that all mesh together?
Easy answer, I don't know. Because we haven't done, the true interventional longitudinal testing. Once we have the clock available, we'll absolutely start to do some of that testing and say, hey, these lifestyle factors really affect skin aging, which is different from, what we offer now in the whole body aging. So we'll definitely figure out, it has to be a part of it, right? I mean, you know people who smoke, people who have alcohol use disorder, you can see it in their face, you can see it in their body. So it's really hard, because I think our providers, although not in the aesthetics field, also struggle with that, where a lot of our healthcare providers, and the ones I work very closely with now, actually don't take patients who aren't willing to, make lifestyle changes, because they truly believe it's a massive part of their overall health, and they won't be able to make as large of an impact. And we're all human. I'm, not saying anyone has to be perfect. You're going to give in one area. I have a massive sweet tooth. Like I love chocolate and sweets, right? I'm not willing to give all of those up, but I know I'm working my butt off in the gym every morning, right? I'm meditating. I'm getting in 10 to 15,000 steps a day. So I think we're all human at the end of the day. So being okay with giving something up is, part of it too.
Yeah. It's like the old 80-20 rule, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I see these relationships as a partnership, to be honest with you. I think that's really important that people really get that buy-in from the patient to say, we're in this together. I'm going to be providing these techniques and treatments and advice, but you have to do your part, really, because, otherwise it's sort of one side's letting the team down and it's going to be impossible to sort of get that result that you want. Yeah. And you're just taking their money, really, which is not great. Yeah.
Well, if the patient isn't willing to do the work, they're kind of wasting their money. You're not taking their money. They're wasting their money. It's kind of the other way around, isn't it?
Yeah, totally.
I would say too, at all of these, longevity conferences and anti-aging conferences and things that I've been at as well, that has been a huge talk point about, the psychology of working with your patient and actually establishing a relationship with them, right? And, all of the things that we do in our space may not be widely known, because I know with you all and Inside Aesthetics, you're at the cutting edge, right? So you definitely have to have that trust first, and then it's, hey, here's what this supplement process procedure looks like. This is what I would recommend. It's ultimately up to you whether you want to do it or not.
And I think that even sort of highlights another point, which we've spoken about before on the podcast, Jake, which is not being in a rush to be successful, not being in a rush to make lots of money. It's about establishing yourself, establishing your practice, and actually being selective about the patients that you want in your practice and in your life. You're getting up every day and doing, 7, 8, 10 hours in a clinic with people. You're talking, it's draining. It can be. But what makes that journey easier is when you've got people that are on the same page as you. They're compliant. They appreciate and understand your methodology and the way you go about things. So I think that it's about being comfortable saying no to patients that aren't on that journey with you, that don't share that mindset and understand where you're coming from, and not being in a rush to be successful. Because I think if you say yes to everyone, then you don't even have an identity anymore. You're just basically an order taker.
You're just fishing.
Yeah, I mean, do you find that with a lot of people that they just kind of end up with these books full of patients who they can't stand, who aren't compliant, don't understand, or not on the same journey?
Yeah, look, and this isn't a knock where I started, which was with you and laser clinics, but I guess the issue that you've just identified is if you don't have a filtration process of who comes in the door, you don't know who's coming in, and it's hard to control anything really. Yeah. So if you have walk-ins versus a hidden boutique clinic where you're a bit more selective, then you lack that control. But more than that, it makes your day fun. Yes. If you look forward to seeing patients who are compliant and happy, and you have a sort of a rapport with them, it just makes work amazing. Yeah. Whereas if you're encountering strangers and some of them are difficult and you have no idea their background, that it's just not fun. Yeah. I mean, I even had a conversation last night with a lovely girl who came and spoke to me at Juve. I can't remember her name because it was the end of the night and my ears were going. All those waters, yeah. And she only a new injector, only been injecting for a short period of time, like less than 12 months. And she was mentally struggling with the fact that she wasn't successful yet. And I think we've almost conditioned people to think, hey, you're going to make lots of money straight away. You're going to have all these patients immediately. It takes a good 2 to 3 years at least. Yeah, I think so. Really. And so, don't put unnecessary pressure on yourself. You don't have to go and open up your own business straight away to be successful. Go and work for someone. Yeah. Build up your experience, build your client base, grow slowly. Like fast success is sometimes not good. Yeah, this is kind of a bit of a sideline. We were on our WhatsApp Patreon today. Someone was talking about there are injectors replying to people on Facebook groups, like public forum Facebook groups, and they're kind of dropping information and advice for these patients, kind of fishing for their custom. And it goes back to your point that why are you doing that? Yeah, that's kind of the lowest sort of way of trying to drum up custom by kind of fishing around on Facebook groups. Yeah. So don't do that. My advice is to identify who your dream customer is and align with that. Make your whole business and your marketing and your messaging and your Instagram all around who you kind of want to come to your clinic. Yeah. And they will come. Yeah. And the people who you don't want to align with, they won't come because they won't resonate with it. Exactly. So yeah, totally. So Hannah, just walk us through
the process. So we sort of alluded to taking a sample, sending it away, there's some analysis, but just, if patient, Susan comes in to see Jake, they decide to do a TruDiagnostic test and find out what's going on with the genetic markers and where there's some potential issues and what their real age is. So just walk us through the process. What does that look like?
For sure. So Susan comes to your clinic, Jake. She wants to know how she's aging and wants to optimize her overall health, right? That's going to be the clientele. When you're talking about audience and who's really taking this test, it's going to be people who are interested in how they're aging, people who are wanting to optimize their overall health and probably have a little bit extra cash to spend on it too. Mm-hmm. It's not going to be the cheapest, test that's out there.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen is you'll have these in stock. Like I mentioned, you can ship them directly to the patient as well. It's just a finger prick blood spot card. So you would prick the patient's finger. If you're taking blood as well, you can pipette blood from an EDTA tube or a lavender top tube onto that blood spot card. They'll register that kit to assign it to themselves. It'll automatically tie to, your healthcare provider account you have with us as well. You'll ship it back to us in Lexington, Kentucky, and get results in about 2 to 3 weeks later. What traditionally happens is the healthcare provider will set up a call with myself or someone on the team to review those results. You may already know how to interpret them, which is great. And you'll come up with a treatment plan, strategy to help slow that user's aging, depending on what those, again, results look like. So we have outcomes, anything from an overall biological age to aging of 11 different organ systems in the body, to your pace of aging, to your telomere as well. So it is an all comprehensive deep dive analysis into how you're aging, right? I wish it were a little bit easier than that, but we know aging's extremely complicated and multifactorial, right? So we kind of give you an array of, kind of aging clocks, how you're aging overall.
And so what do you do with that information that comes back to a practitioner like me? And let's say I'm an injector, that's what I do. How do I mold that into my services and my advice, or who do I refer them to? Like, what happens next?
What do you do once you've caught the car?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it depends. It solely depends on, what you do as an aesthetic practitioner, right? Do you all typically do like lifestyle and wellness recommendations as well? Is that part of it?
I capture that data and we talk about it, but I'm not masquerading as an expert in it. So I guess I would know even before we've done a test of their stress level to some extent, their sleep level, a bit about their nutrition, weight loss or weight gain, and just a bit. But I have a picture of someone, but no, nothing detailed.
So you get that quantifiable data back, right? And you're like, oh wow, they are aging a little bit quicker. So we make recommendations directly on the report.
Oh,
so
right,
you're not going to have refer them out to anyone first and foremost. If you wanted to, you could for whatever reason. I don't think it's completely necessary, but hey, if their aging markers are going to be a little bit faster, we're going to be making direct recommendations on those reports. Is it a nutritional deficiency where we recommend, getting more nutrients through diet, if that's the route you choose, or supplements, right? Increasing things like iron through, meat intake or liver supplementation? Is it vitamin C to help that iron absorption? Is it that you don't get enough sleep at night? You need to optimize quality and quantity sleep, physical exercise, lowering stress levels. So things like that from a lifestyle perspective. We're not recommending any hard anti-aging medications on the reports or anything. Yeah. If anyone's interested, we can always, talk about the fun research that's out there. But yeah, you'll have everything in the report that is needed to really guide the patient.
Have you found from feedback of, presumably you're working with doctors already and getting sort of feedback from them about how it's all going. Do you find that, patients know if they don't sleep well, they know, but they almost accept it as normal. But once they get a test saying this ain't good, that it psychologically sort of prompts the patient to actually make some change. It's almost like an affirmation of this is really not good. It's like helping them change their mindset, I guess, by having a test.
Yeah. I mean, for sure. Absolutely. Right. I like that you picked sleep because sleep is a really fun one to talk about. No one is a bad sleeper, right? Sleep is a skill. It is something you have to learn to do if you want to be good at it. There are so many tips and tricks that you can have, right? The temperature of your room. How early are you putting screens away? What is the timing of your last meal? How is your circadian rhythm aligned throughout the cycle of the day with the sun and the moon? So those are just a couple lifestyle factors that I mentioned, which you can do to really optimize your sleep. There's some supplements out there as well that you can take to help assist with it. But yeah, if they see it and they're like, oh wow, I may be aging because I'm just not sleeping well. It can be more of that wake up call. It's something tangible. And this test, again, isn't a replacement for anything that's already out there that you're already doing on your patient. It's an add-on. It's more of a luxury at this time, but one you should care about, because, again, it comes back to it being that biggest risk factor. Using the sleep example, though, Jake, maybe you then want to have your patient use a wearable like the Whoop or the Oura Ring to start actually measuring, hey, how much deep sleep are they getting, right? What is the I think it's like wake up time, right? Or how much are they actually awake and getting up through the middle of the night? So depending on what area you want to focus on, that's probably what you'll run with and what the report will really pick on. But if, as we're talking and people are listening and they're like, oh crap, my nutrition's bad, or, I need to work out more, like that's probably the thing you need to be really lasering in on anyways too.
Yeah. I mean, I think, Jake, this is an emerging field, just as aesthetic medicine is still an emerging field, and we don't have still an official qualification for aesthetic medicine. I don't believe there is an official pathway or qualification to be someone that
really?
does. I don't know. I don't know about that, really. I don't.
No.
It's still very
mind-blowing, but true.
Yeah. So I think that people that are listening to this saying, well, gosh, how do I even start, or is this even in my wheelhouse? I think that it's going to have to be. Yeah, to some degree. I mean,
we'll create the specialty.
Yeah, and I think this is where you start to, differentiate yourself with the market. We are in quite a saturated space now. We've had so many new people come into the space, and everyone's doing a lot of similar things. Yeah. And so how do you start to separate yourself, and how do you become the person that's going to ride that next wave? Because this is where it's going, whether you like it or whether you don't. This is inevitably where we are heading as a species, is being able to control these things. And if you're someone that starts to educate yourself, and you're not going to become an expert overnight, but picking something, taking an interest in nutrition, or taking an interest in sleep, or setting up a network of other practitioners around you that have complementary skill sets, so you start to create this little hub or community of people around you, so that when patients come in, you've got a bit of knowledge, and you maybe do this test and you talk about general things and recommendations that come on that report, but then you capture them and you start to move them around your network of other people that have got complementary skill sets. So I think that's kind of where we're going. And there is no defined pathway now, just as there wasn't for aesthetic medicine 20 years ago. And I started when people were just doing nasolabial folds and shooting the 3 areas with toxin. Like, no one knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
So this is your opportunity, if you're listening to this, to actually start becoming a pioneer in terms of where we're going.
Yeah. So we introduced something really, really simple in our clinic about 2 or 3 weeks ago. So I can't remember the brand, otherwise I'd say them, but we've got some collagen supplements that the clinic ordered. I had nothing to do with it because one of our dermal therapists is also a nutritionist. Anyway, so we're now offering our patients who come just sat in the waiting room waiting for me or the dermal therapist a collagen supplement in their water or their coffee, whatever they're drinking. And some are like, no, I don't want that. And some are very interested. So the ones who are interested, they often will come into my room and say, what the hell's all this about? Like, why am I drinking collagen? This is new. And so it starts a conversation about, well, I'm trying to provoke collagen synthesis in your face when I'm doing your treatments. The girls are trying to do that with laser or skin needling or whatever it may be. And then we start talking about nutrition and supplementation. And some people are really up for it. They're like, wow, this is mind-blowing. I'm really going to do this. Can I buy a box? And away they go. And then you can start talking about menopause and how things are going to change. And that's the conversation I would have. Yeah. Whereas the patients who are like, this is just too weird for me, just don't bother. But it's the patients who are highly engaged, who might have to spend a bit more money maybe on a test like Hannah's test. I think that's the starting point of how this will snowball.
Yeah.
I think that's a good point, though, Jake and David, because you're coming back to a common theme that we briefly touched on earlier, which is it just comes back to the provider-patient relationship, like how you interact with your patients, which type of patient you actually want to see. But I also think it's about adapting to what the patient wants, right? Really being able to understand everything in the space, be a pioneer in it, stay up to date on the literature that's out there, stay up to date by being part of groups like your all's, which I love what you all are doing with inside aesthetics. You're really paving the way for this particular, area of medicine. And then also about, being curious with your patient, right? Being open-minded. I think all of those things are kind of encompassing what you all are mentioning, but you have to just stay ahead of the curve. And unless you're, parts of groups like your own, then you're going to be left behind. I tell people all the time, we still have a very small subset of healthcare providers who have, a TruDiagnostic account with us. If they're even signed up, they're already way ahead of people. Like even if they just got our welcome email, which has, a couple assets and a couple webinars in it, like if they listen to those, then you're probably a key opinion leader in this space and know way more than your colleagues. So I think it's really about digesting information too. It can be a lot, but you just have to start and then you'll, fall in love with it.
I'm actually really excited about it now.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure at first. No, because I couldn't understand the practicality, and I didn't know that you could. Well, sounds like it's far in development, but it would actually look at skin aging. That's obviously particularly important. I understand wellness and cardiovascular system and cancer risk and all the rest of it, but when we can actually focus on aesthetic and actually tailor that would be way ahead of what we're doing at the moment.
Oh, totally. Just gives you so many more tools. As you said, it takes away the subjectivity of these conversations and makes it tangible and real for the patient. And as I was sort of, to get back to my point before, this is how you stop becoming a commodity, because you're actually offering something that's different. We've got, as I said, a pretty commoditized space. And so all of a sudden, because you can do aesthetic treatments and you have an interest and you do this, all of a sudden you're offering something that nobody else is, or very few people are.
Yeah.
And it makes it harder for people to walk away. So getting back to your point, Hannah, retention, being able to really foster and cement that relationship with that patient, because you're doing something that other people just don't do.
Yeah. Can we drill down into what the results look like on your test then? So, and you've got two different tests, as I understand. So how do they differ? Why would you choose one test versus the other? And what sort of actionable stuff is on the results? Like what could a patient practically do from tomorrow with those results?
Yeah. So in terms of both of the products, one is kind of an all-encompassing product. It's our flagship product. I definitely recommend people doing it at baseline. It's called the Complete Kit. That does all of the different age markers that I was mentioning at the middle of this conversation. The second one is just going to be much cheaper. It's going to be a follow-up. So it kind of gives you just your pace of aging and telomere length results. It's only 2 reports out of the 15 we offer on the Complete Kit. So you're just getting a snapshot, but it's really great for N-of-1 precision-based medicine, because the check-in, hey, what I'm doing is working or what I'm doing is not working, and we need to adjust. Now, what you actually see on the reports, Jake, is going to be, my biological age is 30. It's, 6 years above my chronological age. Wow, that's bad. It's going to break down all of your factors and what you need to work on. So it'll go into components of your diet, your sleep, your stress, and your physical activity. Those are the main 4. We're, of course, going to recommend things that are rather intuitive, like keeping a healthy weight, no smoking, no alcohol consumption, reducing overall toxic load, and insulin sensitivity. Those 5 are a little bit, different. They're not as clear and maybe cookie cutter. So we can help you work on any of those 5 categories as well. We have the organ system aging. So say, for example, you have someone who is 50 and, smokes and drinks a lot of alcohol, someone who's 50 and they don't do those things. The person who's drinking and smoking, they're going to have a lung and a liver age that's maybe, 56 compared to 50. So we'd be able to dive into those factors and recommend we don't engage in those, types of behaviors. Then you have paces of aging, which is going to be more reflective of how quickly you're aging at this current moment in time, which comes out more as a ratio or like a speedometer. So you could be aging, 0.9 biological years for every 1 chronological year, which is great because it's more reflective of your current aging.
Right. And how granular does that information get? So you say, look at your diet, but would it say, like you said before, oh, you're actually lacking iron? You need to look at supplementation or something. Like how much specificity is there?
Yeah, it would. So there's out of the age outcomes, we can kind of break them down and understand where you're lacking. So it may say, I think I used this when we talked about it first. Your red blood cell distribution width is actually too high. You need to lower that, and you need to lower that through methylated, cofactor, vitamin B12, or iron supplementation. So It's actually very specific. That's something that just happened within the past 6 months that we're able to get resolution on.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
You mentioned the word methylation. You mentioned it earlier in the discussion. Can we just explain what that is? I mean, I know a little bit about it. There's a guy called Gary Brecker online who's quite controversial. Some people think he's completely full of shit, and some people think he's just, Jesus Christ reincarnate. So there tends to be no middle ground. They either love him or hate him. But just, can you talk to us about what methylation is? Yeah, sorry, go on.
Yeah, I'll keep my opinion out of it. But we're going to be different from Gary Brecker, though. So he's talking about one out of the 50 million methylation pathways that's going on in your body.
Right.
When I talk about methylation, and I did notice I was using this word and I didn't define it. When something is methylated, that means the gene is turned off by definition. If it's unmethylated, your gene expression is turned on. So it's kind of like this stop and go marker. And that's what we're really measuring. We're measuring a percentage of how many methyl groups there are, or, the absence of them. So DNA methylation is an epigenetic modification. So I'm using them synonymously, but they're not necessarily the same thing.
The way I imagined it, my brain is so simple. You've got a little stick of DNA with little prongs that are kind of a site where methyl can go, and a little cap comes on and turns it off or on. That's how I imagined it.
Yes. I love how you're imagining these things. You're taking like everything I'm saying and like putting it, but no, that's what I need to be like aware of. So I have an image that basically shows that, except the caps are red for methylated and the caps are green for unmethylated. We call them like our little lollipops.
And so getting a little bit deeper, like, can you modify that just with supplements, or is it harder than that?
I would say lifestyle is the most powerful from what we've seen so far. So you can definitely do it with supplements, like some of the, methyl cofactors I mentioned. There's, some other supplements that look really good according to the research right now, like your sulforaphane extract. So your broccoli extract. There's some other antioxidants or senolytic therapies and protocols, such as quercetin, fisetin, resveratrol, tyrostobine, curcumin. I would say NMN and NR, the NAD precursors, are still out for debate a bit. But what we really need are more N of 1 precision-based studies. So we can measure things, on a general population level and start to guesstimate. But, I know what works for me from doing the before and after testing. It's very, very specific, to you as an individual and your environment and your behaviors, how you're interacting with the world.
Are you able to sort of say it simply for dummies like me again? Why is NAD and NMN kind of jury's out at the moment? Because there are lots of people going at that very hard, including really high profile people. So why is that sort of not so clear cut?
I would say there are no interventional trials. There's just no clinical trials on epigenetic aging before and after NR and NMN supplementation.
Right.
Yeah.
And those studies are still very far, few and in between, right? Yeah. Just because this is such a new field. So we're learning a little bit more. I think they look okay on an individual level, right? From a really uncontrolled data view, right? When people take our tests, they tell us what they're taking, and people who do take or say they take NR and NMN do tend to have a little bit slower aging compared to those who don't say they do, but that's very uncontrolled data.
Yeah, because you've got people like, Dr. David Sinclair, who talks about these things, and he's like, rightly or wrongly seems to be the person that's synonymous with the anti-aging movement. So I think that's where I first heard about them as well.
And he does have a product that he makes and sells. So, I'm just saying it's worth declaring if you're going to be teaching and lecturing on this stuff, right?
Absolutely. So, sorry, go on, Hannah.
No, I was just going to say that's why we only sell the test, right? We don't sell the supplement. We don't sell the fix. We'll tell you what we think is working or what looks like it's working, but we're not going to sell you, the test and then the solution to fix, the metrics on the test. So we'll recommend things that look good according to the data.
If you get these tests and there are recommendations that are made and people do what they're supposed to do, can you only slow things down, or is there actually the capacity to reverse the aging process?
Yeah, we've seen reversals. So there are quite a few studies out there that show reversals as well. I think the question then comes into play, David, which is, what does that reversal mean, right? So again, this is so new. Does that reversal mean that actually 30, 40, 50 years from now, you are going to be at a decreased risk of disease, right? So from a predictive landscape, you absolutely should be, but we need that outcome data for years to come too.
Yeah. This is a bit of a wider question. What do you think the implications are for if you know this data, and let's say your data gets better and better and you can almost tell people you should eat this, do this, this is the best exercise and so on. What about insurance and people's life policies and all that kind of stuff? It gets a bit complicated, doesn't it?
It does. You're right. So there is a company already doing it. They licensed an algorithm, back in 2018 or 2019, I think, just in the insurance vertical, and raised over they raised over $370 million, and they hadn't even sold a test. They just had the license to this one algorithm in the vertical of insurance. And to date, they haven't done anything with it. So I still don't think they have a product. They're not, I don't know if they're even still around. But there is the possibility of that in the future. It's not something TruDiagnostic is a part of, or it's not on our pipeline or landscape. Yeah. But it's something to bring up for sure.
Yeah. And do you think that you'll get to a point where you would predict you're serious risk of this particular cancer? We strongly recommend these modifications. Do you think it will go that sort of specific?
100%. So there's already companies doing that with cancer, actually. They're stage 0 liquid biopsy cancer screening companies. So what they're doing is they're actually looking at stage 0 cancer floating around in your bloodstream and your DNA, and they're able to detect that by looking at the on and off switches. Right. So we don't do any of the cancer-based testing because, again, it's a pretty... there's so many players out there in that field already, so we stay away from it. But yeah, it's already available.
Oh, right. Wow. Gosh. That's pretty terrifying.
Which is great because, yeah. Healthy people are taking it and then learning they have really early stages of cancer. And that's, very prevalent in today's world. I hate to say it, as we know, the cancer rates continue to go up.
And where do you think we're going to be in sort of, let's call it 5 years from now? Like if you kind of had to predict where this technology is going, what sort of tools you'll have at your disposal and the diagnostics that we're going to be able to provide people with?
You will hopefully be able to take a couple of drops of blood on that blood spot card for less than $300. And we would be able to tell you how you're aging. We'd be able to give you a full CBC panel, a full hormone workup, tell you how your skin's aging, give you a metabolomic profile, a proteomic profile, and a and basically a nutrient evaluation test as well. Different vitamin levels and things like that. So you should be able to do all of that with just a couple drops of blood, under $300, and get your results delivered all in one.
That's pretty cool. I mean, I did some bloods maybe, I don't know, 6 or 8 months ago, and I hadn't had any health interventions or checks in ages. And, I picked up some things that I needed to act on. But of course, they took like traditional phlebotomy with, 6 or 8 vials. It's quite a lot of stuff because we tested a lot of things. So to do that on a finger prick at home that doesn't involve having to go to, a traditional blood taking service, that would be a big step forward. Yeah. And you could sort of take care of your own health by not having to involve the GP, just, use a test like yourself.
Yeah. So, Hannah, where would you recommend, people that are listening to this podcast, and we kind of alluded to a little bit during the conversation, but for people this is a completely new concept, where do you think they should get started, and what sort of baseline information or education do you think would really assist them in being able to integrate this sort of technology and testing into their practices?
Yeah, like you mentioned with aesthetics, there's not really a good place for education, right? It's so new and cutting edge, it's hard. So we're doing our best to lead the way, use our website as a resource, TruDiagnostic.com. I love to talk to people. So if anyone's just curious or like, hey, this is cool, I want to learn a little bit more about it, I'm happy to chat with anyone and all of you. And you all can shoot me an email. It's just Hannah, HANNAH at TruDiagnostic.com as well. We have a couple hidden education portals for providers that have, membership models, packages, programs, monetization strategies, and information. If you're more interested on that in the back end as well, that I can forward over to you all. But our YouTube channel is a really good resource as well.
All of that information will be at the bottom of the podcast. You don't need to remember it when you're driving your car.
And you also have a Instagram profile called Everything Epigenetics, which is actually how we connected originally. So you do lots of videos and educational content on there, which is fantastic. And we've actually got an offer with TruDiagnostic.
Yes,
as well.
Tell us about it, because you arranged it.
I'll let you know what. I'm going to let Hannah explain it, because I actually found it complicated and I'm a simple dude. So if you can explain it, and we'll obviously have the offer at the bottom of the podcast as well, because I think that there'll be a certain percentage of people that'll be listening saying, yes, I want to introduce this into my clinic.
I'm going to do one on my own. I've decided. Yeah, okay. 100%.
Yeah, for sure. We'll definitely give you all some kits. So if you're a healthcare provider, David's going to put a beautiful link below that is going to take you to sign up as a healthcare provider. Mm-hmm. If you want to choose that route, you can then have the ability to offer these kits at wholesale in your clinic and, upsell them to patients in a part of a program or package.
Can I clarify provider? Does that mean doctor or nurse or both?
Anything.
Okay, anything.
A health coach, nutritionist, yeah.
Brilliant, okay.
A good clarification point. If you go the wholesale route, you'll have access to your patient's results, right? You're treating them like a patient. If you want to be a little bit more hands-off, go ahead and just use the Inside Aesthetics discount code directly on our website. That way you can order a kit, you can test it yourself. Or if you're not a healthcare provider and you just have, a friend or family member who wants to try it, you can just go directly to the website and enter the Inside Aesthetics code, which will, I think it's I12, right? Something like that.
Yes.
Right.
Cool. But all of this will be at the bottom. We'll make sure that's all accurate. But basically there's 2 links. One to be a stockist or have an account, I guess, and one to order a kit. And do a test.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even if you want to try it on yourself first, become a stockist, and we can give you a couple discounted kits as well.
Awesome.
I love these conversations because it's so new. I mean, we obviously love talking about aesthetics and toxins and fillers and business, and this is kind of the new frontier, really, in terms of where we're going. So I love these discussions, and thank you so much for coming on and having a chat with us. And I'm sure that we'll be knocking on your door again at some point in the future to have an update and tell us what's news and what developments are sort of come to light, because I think that there's definitely a large cohort of our audience that are super interested in this stuff.
100%. I absolutely love that talk as well. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. I'm excited. I'm pumped. I'm going to order my own kit to see how old I really am. I'm faking it with all this Botox and filler. I'm probably like 900, really. I'm like Yoda. But also, hopefully that's inspired injectors and people around the world to sort of look at this a little bit more deeper.
Yeah, totally.
So, thank you for your time. We really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, David. Thanks, Jake.
Thank you.
See you later. For our latest news, follow us on Instagram at Inside Aesthetics Podcast. If you want to get in touch with myself or David, follow us on Instagram as well at Dr. Jake Sloan and David_Inside Aesthetics.
Join our Patreon for invaluable business and injectable education. Get access to our global community of like-minded professionals, live and interactive Zoom sessions, hints and tip videos, webinars, and more. Head over to www.insideaesthetics.com/Patreon for more information.